So, dreams flourish in archetypes, which are powerful representations of fundamental responses to universal experiences, such as suffering, death, loss, society, wealth, knowledge, love, and purpose. And dreams can represent how we really feel about our own suffering, our own losses, things like that. And on the right column, I think my contention is that we've kind of had this idea that if you have this certain amount of wealth or knowledge or love or purpose, that everything's just going to be grand and dandy in your life. But I think our dreams represent something a little bit deeper. And those archetypes are not only in our dreams, but they're in our movies, our folklore, our myths. And for this purpose, especially if you can't remember your dreams right now, or if they're weird because of COVID, there's just some bizarre ones right now. I'm just going to kind of use the example of the Wizard of Oz to use as kind of an archetype for some of these universal experiences, just to exemplify what the archetypes would be. And so we're going to go through these representations. And like I said, I'll just give an example and then just kind of weave in the Wizard of Oz throughout this. So, as far as suffering is concerned, everybody suffers. And, even grades can be suffering. And I think about the Wicked Witch, and I think she suffered because of her jealousy, which can be tormenting. Death in dreams is really interesting because death just means change. And I've had so many students talk about having death dreams, especially seniors. I'll have so many seniors come to me and say, "Oh, Miss Newsom, I've had this really scary dream that a parent has died, or a sibling or something like that." And for dreams, it just means change. It just means that your relationship with your parents are going to change. And so I think our subconscious is just kind of trying to prepare us for the changes, and they can be really good and positive, especially if we're not afraid of changes in relationships again, when it comes to death. Loss can be any kind of loss. Loss of a pet in the case of the Wizard of Oz, the loss of innocence, like finding out that Santa Claus isn't real, and we've all kind of had an experience like that. Like it or not, we all have to deal with society. Who you're going to trust. How are you going to integrate yourself into your surroundings when people are just sometimes difficult. Wealth, I think, it has its own archetype for our times, I think. And I just have a feeling that we're very superficial about wealth. We just think, oh, if you're born into money, that's just going to solve all of our problems. And there's kind of a, somebody behind the curtain that I think we could expose what wealth can do to some people. There's a documentary out there called Born Rich that I think really can exemplify maybe how problematic being born with incredible wealth can amass. And it's done by Jamie Johnson, who's going to inherit, or who inherits in this documentary, a huge, vast amount of wealth that he himself admits that he didn't earn. And I think it causes some real psychological problems, as you can kind of see. Anyway, I think it's kind of an interesting documentary. And then, of course, there's knowledge. And I think the way our school system is set up, it's like if you're good at math and science, you're considered smart. And I'm going to get back to the gentleman in the upper right-hand corner, Robert Oppenheimer, and talk about how knowledge and purpose can sometimes have some negative consequences to it. Forrest Gump is not considered smart, and yet everything he does kind of works out. And then I'm not sure how the Scarecrow fits into this, but he wants a brain. It's part of Aristotle. Love is awful. We have this romanticized, I think, idea of love, like from Nicholas Sparks' books, and I think A lot of us have a very unrealistic view of love. And if you think about it, love is really painful because if you really fall in love with somebody, you're vulnerable to them. You let your guard down if you want to experience real love, which I think is scary. Um, and especially if you love somebody and they don't reciprocate that same kind of love. What do you do when it's a parent or somebody who just says, I've fallen out of love? Like, I think that's one of the biggest heartbreaks of them all. So I think we have this idea that love is just so perfect, but really it's messy and awful. And love can kind of stink, I think. And then, what's your why? Why are we in this? Why are we doing this? What's our purpose? I really love at the end of The Wizard of Oz, and I really feel like this is a teacher. I think if I do my job, it's not to instill this knowledge, but it's to say that you've had this all along, like you've known these truths this whole time. One of the saddest dreams that I think I interpreted was an older gentleman, and he said, I had this dream that I was climbing up this building and I finally got to the top, and I looked over and realized that my whole life I had been climbing up the wrong building. And I think if we don't necessarily, stop and think about what we're doing, we might kind of miss these golden opportunities, especially those that pop up in our dreams that can really tell us what's going on in our lives. And it's not going to be pretty and it's not going to be fun necessarily, but it could improve our lives vastly. So I'm a big proponent in dreams, you see. And to just wrap this one up for today, I just wanted to consider Oppenheimer, who was so excited, and those of you who know scientists, they just get so into their field, and gotta love them for that. In the case of Robert Oppenheimer, he was excited and he worked on this, the Manhattan Project, which was to build a nuclear weapon to split the atom. And I don't think he really realized what he was doing. And then he gave an interview after he had detonated the bomb. And just look at his eyes. That you see, he kind of stopped eating. He stopped he really thriving. And I think he was just tormented, realizing that his purpose in life wasn't to just do this really cool scientific experiment, but that his brain, because of his knowledge, was used for just devastation. And so here's Oppenheimer.
We knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
I don't. That's always kind of been haunting to me. But anyway, to finalize this, dreams represent archetypes, and again, if you spend some time with your dreams and get creative with them, I think you'll find that it just can open up brand new doors. And really, isn't it better than studying for some of these tests anyway? It's just a lot more fun, don't you think? So I'm going to give an example of a dream that I had, and then we'll just move on. Thanks for joining me.